Yes. Yes, I love sour gummies and ice.
Hi, we're ASIJ iGEM team. iGEM stands for the International Genetically Engineered Machine, a worldwide competition for synthetic biology. As a widespread condition that affects almost 500 million people worldwide and increasing among the Japanese population, diabetes presents a major area of study. Our team was therefore inspired to search for an effective method of glucose reduction in the bloodstream. Our project, targeting type 2 diabetes, is centered around creating an amylase inhibitor protein. This will lower the activity of amylase in our body that breaks down starch into glucose. Apart from our project, we believe it is extremely important to raise awareness both in our school community and in the general public about diabetes and its current implications. Through interviewing members of our community separated into different levels, we hope to achieve this objective, and we hope people of all ages and backgrounds can leave this video knowing more about diabetes.
Have you ever heard of the disease called diabetes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. When you don't have enough insulin in your body and then you can't break down the sugar.
Like when your body cannot handle the amount of glucose that you consume. I know one friend that has diabetes. I know he always has to carry like a bag just to have his pills to take every day.
I had type 2 diabetes, and the initial reactions, I guess, were a little bit more disbelief. When I was in high school, I was back here working at summer day camp. I was going to the bathroom all the time, super thirsty, moody all the time. So I had all the symptoms, but I was in complete denial. So the only reason I went to the hospital is because at some point I actually passed out at a train station. My blood sugar was way off the charts. You can do a blood test or whatever. It was the strip basically just said high. A huge shock. I was stuck in the hospital, especially in Japan. I was stuck in the hospital for I think a month. So it was basically getting my blood sugar down, but then also giving me an idea of what diabetes is, and how it affects your diet, and how it affects your body and stuff like that. So it was a big shock. And then it took a little while to get used to okay, you need to prick your finger 3 times a day, and you need to inject yourself 3 times a day. It's hard to, change your lifestyle and realize that needs to happen.
Did you know that there are 2 types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2?
No. Maybe I think some types have to do with gene and stuff that is passed on from your heritage.
Okay, so there's type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And type 1 and type 2 diabetes deal with both glucose, blood glucose in your blood circulation, and also the hormone called insulin. But other than that, I think it's fair to call type 1 and type 2 diabetes 2 very different diseases. And namely, the difference is type 1 diabetes. It used to be called juvenile diabetes. And the reason for that is because usually kids develop it while they're kids or young adults. And type 1 diabetes is an illness where it's an autoimmune disease, and your own antibodies attack the beta cells in the pancreas. Those are the cells that produce insulin. So when you eat food, right, the carbohydrate portion gets converted from the carbohydrate into glucose, which goes into your bloodstream. And then that triggers the release of insulin. Insulin is the nutrient sensor. And so when glucose is hanging around, it knows to come out, grab a hold of that glucose, and sort of like a lock and key, opens the cell to bring the glucose into the cell so the cell can use it for energy. Right? The problem with type 2 diabetes is that insulin key doesn't work very well. So that you have a lot of glucose hanging around, but the insulin isn't working that well, just like with alcoholism. Right? If you are an alcoholic and you have a lot of alcohol, pretty soon the body gets resistant to those effects. And the same thing with type 2 diabetes. Now, once these cells are full of sugar, right, that the insulin's brought in, you can store some of that excess sugar that's floating around in your muscles and in your liver. And it stores it as something called glycogen. And that, is fuel for about a day or 2. Right? If you run out of food, you can pull the sugar out of the liver and use that as your fuel. But it's only short-term storage. So once your cells are full and your liver and your muscle cells are full of glycogen, what happens to that excess glucose? The insulin can take it and create fat out of it. And that fat is a triglyceride. And from that triglycerides, it gets stored in the liver. And then when the liver is full, it kind of pumps it out as fat, and that gets stored as visceral fat, the fat that's around your organs and around your midline, and also as subcutaneous fat. Simply put, if you have type 1 diabetes, you have high glucose, but you have low insulin. And if you have type 2 diabetes, you have high glucose, but you also have high insulin.
So how do you think we can help people who have this disease?
We can help if they don't eat as much sugar.
Maybe putting them on a diet, not allowing them to eat too much sugar. Check in every month or so or sooner so that they can keep the diet on track.
I think he always has to be like aware of what he puts in his body because it can affect him, and he has to be cautious.
Look at their diet. Like, seriously, take a step back, and if it's something that the doctors have told you that it is weight related, like, look at your diet and see how you can change it. And even if it's not weight related, like maybe it's just late onset diabetes, it's the easiest thing you can control. And if you tell someone like that's just been diagnosed, like, this is what you can control and this is how you can make a difference, I think that will help focus their attention to that, as opposed to like, I've just been given this life sentence. And in reality, it's not. It's something that they could actually do. They could change some of their choices and their lifestyle to actually reverse it or make it more manageable. So I think just giving them something to control. This is gonna sound really bad, but like, honestly, the pricking of your finger and stabbing yourself with a needle like 6 or 7 times a day is crazy. Like, it's not comfortable, obviously, and I opted to do the Hyewmon pens. So that was like, I had to do an injection before I ate, and then also another one after I ate, and then I'd have to prick my finger probably 5 or 6 times a day. So it just became something that it was not what I wanted to do. It's like the doctor would say, like, if you are having a high carbohydrate or high sugar meal, like, you need to dial it a little bit more depending on where your blood sugar was. So playing with that was really difficult. It came down to, do you really want to live your life like this for the rest of your life, and maybe even get to the point where you have to have a pump and use that, or do you want to try and make a lifestyle change and see if you can kind of almost and reverse the process? I went from 300 pounds to basically 200 pounds in about 6 months, just through change of diet and working out. So I think that was a huge part of how I was able to reverse type 2 diabetes, is through diet. But it was also a huge part of why I got diabetes. Like, changing what you eat can really affect your body.
Research is ongoing with different types of medications and treatment approaches for type 2 diabetes. Things are going to change in the future because we're more and more realizing that only treating the number that you have of glucose in your blood does really nothing to prevent the long-term ramifications, including heart disease, stroke, cancers, dementia, right? The big killers. So I think the treatment is going to have to move away from just glucose control and to incorporate both insulin reduction and insulin sensitivity. So I think things are going to be shifted in that way. We talk about things like immunotherapy and also genetic therapy and a lot of as solutions to modern day illnesses. But like cancer, diabetes is a very complicated illness. It's not just controlled by one gene. In fact, they found that there are at least 150 variations and on 120 different locations on our genome that have something to do with glucose and insulin metabolism. So, it's unrealistic to think that a single genetic therapy is going to cure it. I think it's going to have to be a multifaceted, multi-pronged approach. A lot of doctors in the community, they still, have this belief that type 2 diabetes can't be reversed. So that is one hurdle, to bring that to everybody and that education there. But with more studies, there's actually more and more data to support that by changing your lifestyle, you can actually reverse diabetes. Again, you have to also overcome cultural differences. For example, here in Japan, right? High carbohydrate is a big part of the recommendations, even from diabetic doctors. Most diabetic doctors actually recommend a low-fat diet, and restricting calories that way rather than restricting the carbohydrate, which is really the metabolic problem that we see. Also, it's very difficult if traditionally your diet incorporates a lot of carbohydrates to try and change that. So, a combination of support and also education and some more data that's spread in, I think should help.
What would you like a non-diabetic to know about diabetes?
Okay. Well, with people that they just don't realize what you have to go through. People, they may have to prick their finger right before they eat, and they may have to use the Hyewmon pen, or they may even have a syringe, that kind of thing. People are like, oh, that's gross, that's disgusting, you have to poke yourself. I'm like, well, yeah, it's life. This is what you have to do. And people with a pump, same kind of thing. People just don't realize that if the pump falls off or something goes wrong, that they're gonna need help, and people just don't really care, or they don't realize that it's a life or death kind of thing. With type 2 diabetes, I feel like there's a good marker is people's mood. It's they'll fluctuate a lot, so people just don't kind of understand. There could be a day where I was a total jerk to someone because my blood sugar was low and I was not feeling great, and they said something and I snapped back at them. But then there was you're just being a jerk today. I'm like, no, it's because my blood sugar was low. I'm sorry, but this is what it is. And that's kind of one of the things that my parents actually helped my friends understand. It's when Timmy's blood sugar is low, he's not his normal happy-go-lucky self. He's gonna be a jerk, and that's kind of a sign where you guys need to get him some sugar or something. So it's those two things, just kind of being considerate of maybe a disease that they can't see, that's not visual to the eye. It's more just how that person feels. So.
And finally, what advice would you give to somebody who's just diagnosed with diabetes?
Type 1 or type 2?
Type 2.
I think that it would be look at their diet. Seriously, take a step back, and if it's something that the doctors have told you that it is weight related, look at your diet and see how you can change it. And even if it's not weight related, maybe it's just late onset diabetes, it's the easiest thing you can control. And if you tell someone that's just been diagnosed, this is what you can control and this is how you can make a difference, I think that will help focus their attention to that, as opposed to I've just been given this life sentence, and in reality it's not. It's something that they could actually do. They could change some of their choices and their lifestyle to actually reverse it, or make it more manageable. Because when they're first diagnosed, they're going to be probably injecting themselves with large amounts of insulin, but you can get to a certain point where it's less and less and less, and it becomes something that they can actually handle. So I think just giving them something to control and focus on would be a lot better than just worrying about that it's diabetes and it's the end of the world. Cool?